Finally, we're here, mate. Let's do it. Okay, on three, on 3, 2, 1. Thank you, Neil Tilbury, for your editing. G'day, wherever you may be in the multiverse. This is Mastering Music, Mastering Life. Welcome to another episode. I'm Tony Jack the Bear Mance. I'm here in my studio, Deluxe Mastering, Melbourne, Australia. I still think it's the most livable city in the world. And I'm so happy after many attempts to get him on the podcast, mistakes partly due to my miscalculations and my fuck-ups. But from Decoded Magazine, Damion Pell, my dear friend, welcome to the podcast. Great to have your company, mate.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Mate, I'm well. It's lovely to sit and have a chat. It's
well, we've got plenty of time to do it now, don't we?
that we do, and plenty to discuss. And
yeah, absolutely. Since last time we spoke, a lot of things have changed.
Indeed, indeed they have. So for those who don't know Damion runs Decoded Magazine. He's a DJ in his own right. You are a very probably one of the most travelled people I know, one of the most experienced in life that I know. And when we do chat, I always find that I learn new things about you and share all these different experiences. I've only read 16 books in my life, mate, but if you wrote a book and you were able, with the legalities involved in what you could share or how you could, that whole the names of the guilty have been changed to protect the other guilty. I would read, if you did, I reckon you could write probably 3 fucking volumes, and I'd read them because I know that everything would be true. Because the thing is, mate, that we've only scratched the surface, you and I, and already I just think, fuck me, it's all true, and it'd be the classic case of the truth is stranger than fiction.
Well, yeah, I mean, off camera, I'll probably tell you some funny stories, but I think probably the closest to my life would be the book, The Secret DJ.
Mm-hmm.
But because I'm too busy writing all the time, I think I just make myself a coffee table book with just some pictures and just a little paragraph about each one. I'm pretty busy these days, but probably busier than ever, actually. So, yeah.
I don't think I know that many people that spin as many plates as you, and constantly, like, I follow you online, and I'm always saying, oh, we're doing this marketing thing. Oh, we're rebranding this. Oh, we're doing this launch party. Oh, we're looking for a location. Oh, we're doing this video series. And it's just like constantly, mate, you're just throwing shit all the time out there. You're rebranding Decoded. For those who don't know, Decoded's a magazine that Damion runs. It's without, and I'm not saying it to piss in his pocket because I'm not looking for a new best friend, but it is the most quality, best publication that's out there for people that are interested in, But it is, mate, because there's no compromise on the articles and the quality of the photos and the magazine itself. You pick it up and it's just like, yeah, that's fucking quality right there. So, and I don't even think you even have to be a dance music aficionado. I think if you just like music and popular culture, there's a lot of stuff that's in there for everybody. So I think it has great. I think it's got it has a niche, but I think it also it covers quite a lot of stuff for different people, man. So Damion, that's true, man. And Damion runs that, and as a DJ. So, but yes,
I have 2 other business partners, so better not leave them out as an Ian high.
Yeah. Well, I was saying yesterday on a short blog I wrote that. We all like to, we all like to think or identify as being quote unquote self-made, but the reality is that we need people around us. We do need a team, and we need to be able to know, okay, well, I'm particularly good at this area, but I'm not great there. So I'm going to engage the services, and you just got to put your ego to the side and just realize where your strengths are, delegate your weaknesses, and you've got to deal with way more people than I have to in my orbit. So, you're an expert at that, mate, at delegating.
Yeah, I mean, my business partners, they're almost like my best friend. Well, they are my best mates. So for us, we know our strengths and weaknesses. I go out, I make things happen. They do all the hard work. We as a team, we're quite symbiotic, so there's 3 of us. But, what really makes us is our writers as well. Yeah. So we have about 52 writers in 15 countries, I think it is. I mean, we had at one point about 150 writers. So
extraordinary.
It's a lot, and you end up becoming more of a counselor and a father figure to some of these writers. I've had to deal with, some of them. Well, the worst case scenario was one of our writers in America. She'd been raped, and in college, and the first person she came to was me because it was a trusted voice that she could speak to.
Wow.
So you just drop everything and spend time to do that. And so we're more of a family with our writers, than anything. We don't put deadlines. We just sort of say, you write what you want to write about, and we massage their story. We don't rewrite it. We just help them along the way and give them their resources. So for us, it's a different way of doing it. We don't have a full-time office and staff. I'm sure we'd like to, but now that we're all in lockdown and stuff and everyone's working from home, I go, well, I've been mobile working for 6 years doing this. So for me, it's like, this is just another day. I wake up every day going, nothing's changed. So, but it's good. It keeps us busy and we enjoy it. I mean, there's a lot more. I mean, it's a tough time for everybody at the moment. I think we've probably lost about 70% of our revenue. And I feel sorry for quite a lot of other publications where, they've probably lost 80, 90% of their revenue, especially the print mags and stuff. I know a lot of print mags at the moment are not going to do any printing for the next couple of months. Which is a huge chunk of their revenue. It's really, really difficult. And trying to get people to read the articles then as well, because as you know, social media is flooded with currently conspiracy theories or memes and stuff. Not many people are taking time out to just sit down and have a good read. I mean, we do stuff in long form as well. We don't write, like a Q&A or anything. To write an article probably can take up to 2 months. So just one interview. So because you've got to do the research, you've got to go back to the artist comes back. Sometimes we throw it back at them and say that's not enough info, write more. Because we're very tough on the artists. We don't accept them being lazy either, because the way we look at it is like, well, this isn't for us, right? We couldn't care less if you're on the magazine, to be honest. Like there's a million other DJs out there, but this is for your fans. This is for people that are interested in your music. And if you're not going to respect them and respect us to take the time out and do it properly, then we'll just cut it. And I think we've cut about probably 20 interviews over time. It's some pretty big names. We just go, no, don't care. So we're pretty lucky in that sense that we can be tough on people. It's probably got us a bit of a reputation here and there, but you've got to do it just like you do in your studio. If they're not going to put the effort in, they're not going to do it properly. What's the point of having them as a client?
Well, yeah, that's true. And I think also your reputation, and the perception, which is that people's perception of you, comes about from your output. What people talk about, how they speak about you, and so it's important that, given that everyone's subjective in their view of the world, you still want to make sure that in your heart of hearts that whatever you put out there is good. And if people, if people don't, and I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine that you might be like me in the sense of, I don't care. Of course, I want people to like what I do, or like me, or like my output, but I also understand that people, if they don't, that's fine. Where my concern is, you don't want to give people a justified reason to not like you. So if people don't like your magazine, you want to say, okay, well, you're not into that sort of thing. That's your bad taste or what have you. But you don't want. I think there's a certain line where, irrespective of your subjective view on something, there's something that universally people can agree and go, that's shit, and that's what you want to avoid. Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. So I mean, for us, it's about, we don't get involved in clickbait. We don't get involved in bad journalism or sensationalism or stuff like that. We're not a tabloid magazine. And look, if other people want to do that, that's up to them. That's their business model. And that's fine. We're not going to judge them or whatever. But for us, it's really important. So we always want to be known as, well, if we're going to put something out, let's make sure it's factual, it's referenced. We're writing about it properly. We give a lot of room to breathe in an article, so we're not very subjective. We try and adhere to. It's funny, we try and say we're the Guardian newspaper of electronic music in some respects. Try and be fair.
I just lost you there. Come in, spinner. Hello, Damion. Oh,
can you hear me?
No, I can hear you, mate. It's all good. It's all good. Pick up.
Don't know what's going on there. So I mean, we
where I lost you was at where like the Guardian. You made a reference to like the Guardian of electronic dance music.
Yeah. So I mean, for us, it's like, well, you may not like the article, or whatever, but we're not giving you a reason to hate us per se. You just may not like something. So it's exactly what you said. So it's a fine line sometimes. You can't please everybody.
No, of course.
Yeah.
One of the things I've noticed over the years, and look, I'm not a journalist, but I've seen how the press and magazines and print media have evolved over years. And one of the things I really lament, and this is one of the things that you guys do well and is lacking and has just eroded over the time, is that where I see, for example, there was a time where street press here in Melbourne was very informative based, and there was time taken to write articles. Where now what I'm seeing more of is advertorials that probably don't even get checked, and so and I think they're pretty blatant about it, and because it just comes down to money. It's like, well, we'll give you and I've been approached by this, several times, and it's all very loosely. Disguised as, we want to give you a special offer, and we're really good. We wrote an article about what you do, blah blah blah. Oh, and we'll give you a really special rate on a quarter page or a half page ad. And so, of course, the incentive is the more that you'd spend with them, the more coverage they're going to get you. And to me, I understand the business model, but I think again, if someone wants you enough and they really believe in what they're saying in terms of, we think you have pull for the magazine, or you're going to have a draw, you're going to want them anyway, because they have the draw. If you're that much of a draw, then you're going to be able to sell advertising on the back of the fact that who the DJ or the artist or whoever is. The top billing guy. So,
well, I mean, for us three owners of the mag, we're DJs anyway. So we absolutely love music. So our first and foremost is this artist good? Like, we don't really care. We just pump whatever we want out, and we don't write about anything. I mean, we get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of email per week from press agents and all that sort of stuff, asking, can we interview such and such? And we're like, no. We stick very tightly to our guideline, and if we don't like your music, we just tell them. The thing what you're saying is what we call native advertising. I was on a panel in November with Mixmag and Resident Advisor on this, actually. At the Electronic Music Conference in Sydney, which is why I'm stuck in Australia, because I flew out here and now I'm stuck. Anyway, so look, we don't do native advertising. So basically, if anyone doesn't know what native advertising is, it's an article to make it look like an article, but essentially you paid for it. So I don't agree with it. Obviously, we like to stick to our journalism principles, but there's a company in Australia that owns most of street press. Their whole model is based upon 80% of native journalism. So it kind of shows you how rampant it is. And that, I can understand it. I'm not going to say, it's a bad thing because it works for them, and I'm not going to comment on somebody else's business and financials.
Sure.
I can only comment on us. However, I can understand it. Money's down. People aren't advertising much. A lot of people use social media and stuff now. A lot of promoters, now that they can do everything digitally, there's no need to be written up. They don't even need articles. Especially in Australia, the collapse of In the Mix and Pulse, which were your two major online outlets, they went under. And so promoters and electronic music here had to be self-sufficient. So they utilized their own databases and stuff. So they don't need magazines anymore, which is nice of them. Whereas in the UK, where we're based, it's still very much, the pinnacle of you are not a DJ or a promoter unless you've had an interview, you've not had this. It's quite different here. It's very unique.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You travel around the world a lot, Damion. What do you think are the fundamental differences between how things are run in the UK or Europe broadly, but let's just say the UK more specifically, and Australia in terms of attitude, just the way things are run over there? What do you see as been the fundamental main differences?
I probably should do a bit of a preface to this to sort of explain it before anyone goes, oh my God, you just said that.
Sure.
Because I can be quite outspoken sometimes.
Yeah, go for it, mate.
So, look, you've got to understand the UK is a melting pot of music, cultures. It has people flying in and out, so ideas are freely exchanged. It's a very porous industry there. It's so open, and it thrives on art. It thrives on music. In all genres, right? It doesn't not just electronic music. It's celebrated in the media. It's celebrated everywhere. It defines, like, where you live in some parts of London really defines of what type of music you listen to as well, because you're close to your clubs like Fabric or Ministry, and if you're into grime and hip hop and stuff like that, you'd be in other parts south of the river. Well, it's very unique. So even where you live defines who you are in some like part of a scene. Whereas Australia, it's so bloody big.
Yeah.
I find that even Sydney and Melbourne are so different. To Adelaide's so different. We're currently out sitting in the Barossa. It's nice and sunny outside, so I figured I'd just do this call outside today.
Nice.
Sadly, it's too early to crack a beer, but
just remember, mate. It's 6 o'clock somewhere in the world right now.
Well, see, I work UK time, so to me this is probably pretty late. But the thing is, the UK scene is at a peak. It's very mature. It's very professional. Festivals alone turn over £60 billion.
Wow.
So that's about 150 million, a billion, sorry, in Australian dollars. So that just shows you just how big it is. And that's just festivals alone. That's not clubbing. That's not record labels. I think the record music industry is something like £50 billion a year. So whereas Australia, I think the recording industry, don't quote me on this, but I would say roughly billion.
Yeah.
If not less, I'd say probably 500 million. So it's because we're such a small country, half the population of London, the population of London is half the size of Australia alone. So, so it's very different, and Australians are, I think, a little bit apathetic to music here. We take it for granted. We take a lot of things for granted here. We haven't had to really struggle and fight for it so much. I'm not talking about lockouts and stuff. That's another topic. And so it creates a sense of Australian attitude. She'll be right. It's very kick the can down the road. Now on a micro level, people are doing things. right? So you might have a small promoter in Sydney running a club for 200 people and they're doing amazing. You might have a small record label that's based out of Byron and they're making waves internationally. But here in Australia, we tend to think it's a bit of a tall poppy syndrome, so we don't celebrate someone becoming too big. And if they do, we kind of chop them down. Now, I'm not a big fan of some certain artists that represent Australia, the Australian DJs overseas. But that's just because of music, or I just think they're a dickhead. But I would never chop them down because they are out there, and I think we need to get over a point in time in Australia where you have to now go overseas to make it big. The irony is when you're in the UK or in Europe, everyone lauds Australia. They're like, wow. One of the biggest things was there was quite a lot of stigma with Australia, that it was very cheesy. It was very, that poppy EDM. There was a point in time where Australia stopped following the trends of the UK and it started following the trends of the US. We became very Americanized in our festivals. We became very Americanized in our music, the way we talk, everything. We stopped being that UK sort of influence where it was very, I don't know, it had this kind of vibe, a feeling about it. It was very, very different to just disposable music. We became very disposable, and it took a big chunk for probably about 5-7 years out of the industry, where we lauded people who were just famous on Instagram rather than the quality that we had. Whereas I find in the UK, you can have lots of Instagram followers, but you have to back it up. I think that's the big difference.
As my friend Gab Oliver, who's really, really good mates with the likes of Anthony Pappa and Phil Kay and that crew, I love his quote of, when the needle drops, the bullshit stops.
Yeah.
Simple.
Well, some DJs just press play. So
yeah, indeed.
There's no needle. There's no nothing.
yeah. Where do you see the megastar DJ who's getting $100,000 US a set and stuff like that? You think that's a sustainable thing as we're moving forward? Into this new normal that we still haven't quite established.
In the last 2 years, the demise of the EDM scene, which for anyone out there is probably the more commercial scene. EDM, I don't even like that term.
Yeah.
It's a very American thing. It represents everything that I think is wrong with the scene. It's about excess. It's about VIP. It's about,
the bottle in the club. Bottle in the club. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, those days are over for those artists. Right, I'll be very clear on that. They are struggling. That scene has collapsed. Rightly or wrongly, I don't wish anyone ill will for out of work and all that sort of stuff, or struggling, whatever.
Of course, yeah.
I may not agree with the music or the politics, but I hope they find a new way or continue with the music if they really truly love it and they truly are musicians. And good luck. If they're just in it for whatever, then see at the doors that way. Look, there is the flip side is that at the end of when the EDM scene came crashing down as a house of cards anyway, was that kids are always going to then branch out. The music industry, well, all types of genres of music is like a tree, right? So you've got your trunk, the base of it, and then it filters out. So let's say electronic music, a branch goes out one way and it goes to drum and bass. The other side goes to techno, and then out of those leaves there's little subgenres outside of those. If someone was listening to, let's say, just EDM, it's like putting a pot on your head and bashing it with a ladle anyway. Then when that's over, where are they going to go? Now, for a lot of young people, they kind of grow up and they go out of raves and they stop taking their drugs, whatever, and they've got a career and they'll they'll switch over to more commercial music and blah, blah, radio music. You got those diehard ones that'll dig down deeper down the rabbit hole. They will go to underground raves. You got other ones that'll go off different genres, right? So because that music was so hard, it was 130 BPM, bashing away. I think techno was the biggest one that they were ever going to go to, because it can be quite hard and aggressive. And it's, I said it's probably about years.
Okay, he's gone. Hopefully he'll come back really soon. I think haven't lost you, mate. Come back, Damion.
Still here.
Yep.
Still here. I'm still here. Sorry. So I said, 5 years ago, I said
it was aggressive.
Yeah, techno is the new EDM, which wasn't saying it's bad music. I'm just saying that
it's
when
taken
kids
over.
grow up, they're going to. Yeah, it's taken over that sound. Now, the older generation, they're going to go into more of the melodic sounds or go back to house music and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing a resurgence coming back. Now, ironically, those techno DJs that were probably earning $2,000 a set 5 years ago are now at $100,000 a set. So there's quite a well-known artist that came out here a year and a half ago, 2 years ago from Germany.
Mm-hmm.
It was $200,000 for 2 sets.
Wow.
So
where does this money? Let me ask you. Where does this money come from? Is it just sponsors? Because ticket sales alone, or is it just do they sell stands at these gigs? And I mean, where does this money come from to cover? Because it's not just the $200,000. It's also the first class air travel and the 5-star accommodation and all the trimmings, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, my promoting days are well and truly over, although we still run parties every now and then. But obviously, I'm well aware of the costs of artists that come out. It's majority is ticket sales. If you were to speak about Armada in Europe, their merchandising accounts for 40%. Right, wow. So their merchandise will sell out in 2 hours of opening. But I think at one stage, and they sell out massive arenas for 50,000 people.
Right.
In Holland, they sold out of all their merchandise. I think they paid. I was at Armada office. They were telling me about it. I think it was 280,000 euros in 45 minutes.
Damn.
So, yeah. So like I said, in Europe, the UK, it's a way of life. Like I always say, the difference between Australia and Europe is in Europe, you're part of the scene. In Australia, you're out to be seen. That makes sense?
Yeah, totally.
That's probably the easiest way to describe that. But the money, look, a lot of the money majority comes from things like the venues will put in money, or there's drink sales on top. The money's there, but it's a big risk. It's like gambling, So you win and you lose, and at the moment there's a lot of promoters out there hurting. I know of a good friend that's lost $250,000 in 1 week from this pandemic.
Well, you obviously know Mark James, and Mark James once upon a time was he was the godfather of the club scene in Australia, and he running summer days and whatnot, and he he just ruled. And I remember sitting with him one day, and he was telling me, and this is I think late 90s or probably early 2000s, where you were talking about the gambling aspect, and he was just giving me an insight into how precarious it is, where he said, a lot of people, he said, see the fact that at the time, lots of big festivals, lots of numbers, and people perceive, the cash registers going off the hook. But he said there was one particular party where he sat, it was New Year's Eve, and he said that night, he said, I'd done $500,000, which was it's a fuckload of money in any day. But back in that day, it was probably like $2 million in today's money. And he says, and everyone said, hey, Happy New Year. And here is he said, Happy New Year, mate, with $500,000 down the gurgler, and just just like that. It's man, it's like those high rolling gamblers. You're absolutely right, because you got to put your money where your mouth is, and if you can't, then you got to. It's just having this huge debt that you got to cover people, man. You got to pay your tab.
Yeah, I mean, I take my hat off essentially to a lot of my friends who run the big events here in Australia. It's a hard thing for them to swallow.
Absolutely.
But it's all scales of economy. A small time promoter losing $500 is a lot of money to them.
Absolutely.
A big promoter losing 50,000 is okay. It's money. They don't like losing it, but it's all relative.
Collateral damage. Yeah. No. So of all the places,
sadly,
So of all the places you've travelled, because I know you still move around quite a bit with work and whatnot. Where are some of your? Do you have a favourite place or particular spot you really love coming to, particularly when it comes to, when you've got the luxury of having a long term, being able to sort of dedicate amount of time to base yourself?
Besides being stuck somewhere.
Besides being stuck, yes, yes, indeed.
Yeah, I'm getting a bit stir crazy now. Look, I've lived in a lot of places and I've been to a lot of places. I still love coming home to Sydney, my hometown.
So
it's one of the most beautiful cities in the world.
Were you born in Sydney? Is that where you were born?
Yeah,
Damion?
Sydney. Yeah, I was born in Sydney. Yeah, Sydney. Yeah.
Oh boy, okay.
But I have the luxury of having a British passport as well. Although it's not worth much these days. That's sadly about Brexit.
What's your take on it?
Look, it's always. I think it's a crazy idea, but it's happening. It's been done. There's nothing. We can just only work on it. For us, there's a lot in business we have to do, and we've thought about sorry, there's flies flying around me. This is the beauty about being outside, sitting outside, driving me nuts. Look, it's happened. It broke my heart that it's happened. It's upset a lot of people, but I really worry about the UK simply because with the pandemic now, and then throw in Brexit, and then throw in a global recession. So they're in a lot of trouble. Might actually end up moving back to Australia. But yeah, it's nice to come back home to Sydney. I mean, it's a beautiful city. A lot of my friends are there. I try and get down to Melbourne when I can, but I've tried living there. It's not my favourite city in the world. No offence.
No, not at all. None taken.
I lived in Amsterdam for quite a few years. There's a dog barking. Sorry.
That's right.
I lived in Amsterdam for quite a few years, and I love it. I do miss it sometimes, but it's a tough city to live in. The Dutch, to try and get over that thing and try and learn a new language. But I love going back to London, which is where I'm based. So, but I have a love-hate relationship with London. I love it and I hate it at the same time. So that's why I keep traveling. It's nice. It's nice to just sort of I'm pretty lucky in my job. It takes me to places. I went on a press trip once to Georgia, of all places. You don't know where Georgia is on the
in the Russian, the old Russian, USSR,
yeah. So it was probably the most insane press trip I've ever been on. Besides being robbed, dealing with drunk police officers doing burnouts in the car park, shooting up in the air.
Jesus.
It was, and then. So it was a week-long festival, and so they do this festival, and it's basically where the Russians took the territory from the Georgians,
right.
And on the border of Georgia. So they once a year they open up this small bridge that allows people to go back and forth, right? Which are Georgian citizens allowed to come back and see their families and stuff. So they created this music festival, and it goes for a week. 24 hours a day, goes for a week.
Wow.
The last one that did it went for a month.
Jesus.
So, and these Iranians right? Because Georgia's on the border of Iran. And in Iran, they're not allowed to listen to electronic music and all that stuff. So these busloads of them come into there. And because the Iranians have the biggest meth problem in the entire world, right? So they're just heads in the speakers going crazy for a week, these Iranians. And you've got Russians, you've got Turkish, you've got Armenians, you've got this melting pot of people on the Black Sea, because it's actually on the water, like on Pebble Beach and in a park type thing, in half-built hotels that are half crumbling, half-built.
Gee.
It was probably the most insane thing. I think like a packet of cigarettes cost me 60 cents. We could just have whatever we wanted. It was exactly like out of a movie where you're driving along and there's cows on the road, there's at night and the cars are crazy and we're just holding onto our seatbelts going, oh my God, we're going to die. It was, the first night we got there, they messed up our hotel rooms. So they go, okay, it was a bunch of group of DJs and stuff like that. So they put us in this farmhouse. They go, okay, we've got your farm. And it's like exactly what you see in a movie. There's chickens and stuff running around and it's all dilapidated and stuff. And about 5 o'clock in the morning, of course, tired, jet lag, because it took us hours and hours to get there. Oh, we had to pass through the actual coup in Turkey at the same time. So we've got all this film crew and they're arresting journalists and we're like huddled up like blankets over us in the corner of an airport so the police don't notice us with all this camera gear. So anyway, I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and there's this, sorry about that dog barking, not normally a dog there. So we wake up at 5 in the morning with this rooster at the windowsill crowing in my ear and this weird Georgian farmer comes in, says something to me in Georgia, throws the rooster out, shuts the door, and I'm like, where the hell am I? It was something out of a weirdest scene. And we come out and there's this whole family sitting around a table and it was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like it was the funniest press trip I've ever had, or one of the funniest, but it was also the scariest and the most interesting. And I'm pretty blessed with it, to be honest. Like it's I can look back now and laugh. I wasn't laughing when I got robbed, and then ended up with got sick for 2 weeks afterwards, like this food poisoning and everything. Like it was great fun though.
Hey, I was watching again on Netflix the other night that the documentary with Jesus Christ, the Swedish kid that died. Vici. And it was and it got me thinking. I said, "Oh, look, when I speak to Damion, I was going to ask you about, did you have any personal experience with the kid, watching his career, or did you ever cross paths with him, and sort of get your commentary on, in light of what's happening right now in the world with people, how you're seeing mental health and how it's affecting, DJs and just people within the scene in our community."
It's a good question. Look, I personally didn't know him. I think I only met him once, shook his hand for like 2 seconds, like, hi, how you going?
Yep.
I think there was like 50 other people around at the same time. I wanted to shake his hand. I just happened to be sitting there having a drink somewhere. I think it was in a beef or something. I don't know him. I've seen that documentary as well. I know a lot of people who know him personally, or knew him personally, and also his father. They had him out at the International Music Summit last year to talk about mental health, which we kind of did a few words about. We were a partner with IMS. At any respect, like regardless of his music or whatever, it's terrible to hear someone passing away, especially. I think it could have been manageable. And when you watch that documentary and you see him in Australia and he's in hospital, and you can just see that pain and anguish on his face, and certain elements of his entourage, I'm not going to say who, were still pushing for him to move forward, get through it. I think that was a pretty hard thing to watch. I think that worked the music industry up a little bit as well. I think artists pushed back a little bit after that as well, just sort of on their team around them, and their workloads and stuff. It's tragic what happened.
People need to see that documentary. Look, even if you're not necessarily an electronic music enthusiast, like I was still, it was like watching a slot machine. When they were showing the dates, and I look, I'm nearly 57, and I couldn't withstand that much volume of work, even in something that I love doing. And if you said to me, you're going to work for 90 days straight, all day, just doing a compilation of every fucking disco record of known to man in a 300 CD box set or something like that, I'd go out of my fucking mind, mate. Go out of my mind, and it just makes me wonder.
Yeah, the pressures on some of these touring art, which that was the EDM thing. So the pressures on them and the money that was going through was ridiculous. So you've got to understand, if their manager's taking 30% of their cut, they're going to push them to do more and more. There's another one, Tiesto, In Search of, I think it's called In Search of Sunrise, or no, I think that was his album he did. There was a doco anyway, Tiesto, following Tiesto for a day, and he did 4 gigs in one night. But jumping on a plane, get straight off, off the deck, straight onto a private jet, flies to Vegas, does another gig, and then does another gig, and then back home does another gig, and then and then you see it, and then you start having drinks, you're tired, all that sort of stuff. Your body can't handle it, and your mind can't handle it. You've got to decompress. So there are now, there's a lot of good things that have come out of this. Luckily, there's now DJ only retreats where they, there's one in Ibiza. I think there's one in Bali now. There's one in America. There's one in Tulum, I think. They've spotted them around the world. I think there's one in Switzerland as well. They're basically health and well-being clinics that artists can pop in. It's open to any music industry person, basically. But they, teach them healthy living, give them time to decompress. They don't allow them around music and all that good stuff. They can talk with other artists and share their things. So, I think Dawley and stuff, the DJ Dawley, he does a really good one. There's quite a few that are popping up, which I think is brilliant. But, the biggest hurdle at any time as an artist to sort of stop and go, I need a break. And if they don't do that, then all the retreats in the world are not going to mean anything.
There's this thing that one of the great fears of people is that they're not enough, or that they don't want to let people down. There's this innate thing to want to please people because they don't have boundaries. And look, I understand also, as a DJ, you probably have a certain window where you can be right at the very top of your game. It's very competitive. People's taste can be very fickle. And so you want to exploit what you can when you can. And the mindset is probably, well, look, I'm just going to knuckle down for this 2 or 3 years, and I will just sacrifice whatever. And at the end of it, I'm going to have a nice little nest egg, and then I can kind of, maybe taper it off, or there'll be something else maybe to do, or what have you. And I think a lot of those things are well intentioned, but the execution usually isn't quite there. And like you said, when you've seen it a lot more than I have, but certainly I've even seen it in the rock and roll in overseas, particularly America, entourages and whatnot. And there's always going to be those people, unfortunately, who are unscrupulous, and you are just as much. You're a commodity. You're just something that is there to extract money from, to leverage from. It's sort of chew them up, spit them out, and away we go. But they exploit, I see, the this fear they have, which is, I want to be liked, I want to be relevant, I want to be, I want to be adored. And I don't want to let people down. I don't want people to think ill of me. And so, so we have these young kids who, they, apart from the external pressure, there is their own internal pressure of, of wanting to feel loved and appreciated, and thinking, well, my ticket to that validation is going to be through me doing this, saying that, being available, meeting up to all these apparent obligations. And so it's a double-edged sword that way. And
I feel sorry for kids these days. Is that they are constantly bombarded with outside their way of communicating these days is online digitally, and the messaging that keeps being thrown in their face is you've got to look this way, you've got to talk this way, you've got to dress this way, you've got to listen to this music, you've got to listen to that, and you've got to do this and do that. They're not have the ability to grow up and formulate their own personalities because they're bombarded with the personalities that they think they should have. But my advice to anyone, if there's younger people reading this, is switch off for maybe a week or two. It's not going to kill you to be offline, and go for a walk and really start thinking about who do you want to be. And as an industry professional, I hate to use that word loosely, is that it would be that look, you're going to be recognized and respected if you were to follow your own path and who you are rather than following the general trends. Because I can tell you now, as a journalist and as an editor, as someone who's worked in music, artist management, stuff like that as well, is that if you were to follow the same as everybody else, you're going to be the first one to be overlooked, because we don't care. We don't want to have another 50 David Guettas out there. We don't want to have another 50 Fishers or whatever like that. We don't want another 50, Hernan Catania. We want you to be you and unique. And if you can't do that, then you're just another fish in a big sea. So, and you're not going to get looked at. You're not going to get the recognition that you want. You're not going to get anything. So everything you're doing is a waste of time. Be unique. Find your own sound. Find your own groove. Do whatever you want to do, but just don't be the same as everybody else.
And be authentic.
Absolutely.
In your expression. And I'll tell you one guy who I give a lot of props to. Again, we'll call him a veteran. I think, respectfully, I can call him a veteran now. Was Anthony Pappa. I remember. Yeah, Anthony,
great guy.
Great guy, amazing DJ. Has been through a hell of a journey himself. And has come to the other side even bigger and better than ever before. Whoever would have thunk it? But I remember when Anthony was here in Australia, we're talking like in the mid 90s, as a 16, 17-year-old kid who was blowing everyone out the water. But Anthony refused to succumb to the trend of the day. He just tread his own path, and he just worked exceedingly hard. I mean, this is one of the guys who, you want to talk about a guy who's obsessed and who, he worked it. And Anthony also, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, he comes from a background where he didn't really have to do that. He made a choice he had a choice of like, I could go down an easier path in a family business, or I'm going to follow my passion. And that came at a cost to him. And so much so that he picked up his bags and went to the UK, and he single-handedly flew the flag for Australia. But again, by not playing the game, not succumbing to people's expectations, it was like, this is how I roll, and this is what I do. And he became an international star. He had a car accident. He came through that, and now he's still just large. He'll still be on, go to the weekend to Argentina, do a gig, and the next thing you know, he's over there doing a gig and playing to a big festival and what have you. But because
quite the resurgence in his career, yeah,
absolutely, but all because he was authentic through the whole thing, and he laid a good foundation, a good base for his career. So absolutely,
he did it. He wasn't chasing. I can only observe. He can jump on later and message me and tell me I was wrong. He'd probably laugh at me, but that's, what are you doing? I think we actually got an interview with him out next week, I think.
Nice. Well, when you speak,
I just heard his name thrown around the other day in a meeting, so probably is one. Look, I can tell you now, those artists that dip up and down, up and down, up and down, they seem to be the flavor of the month all of a sudden. Next minute, you don't hear about them for ages. Those artists are playing the PR game. right? So they're behind them is a team of public relations, agencies, record labels, stuff like that. It's an engineered machine. It grinds the gears, and we at the magazine end become then the tipping point, and we get to choose to write about it or not. And I know what money changes hands. I know who's doing what, and I can tell you now, it's a very expensive game to play, and it's not one that if you want to have a long-term career and be a very long respected career, that it's not a game worth playing. You're better off doing it on your own terms. Put in that hard yard like Anthony did, and Hernan, and Dave Seaman, and Nick Warren, or Miguel Miggs, all those sorts of guys.
John Digweed,
all those sort of guys. Yeah, all those, just guys who just pushed away at it, even though they weren't the flavour of the month. They just created their own scenes. They created their own fan base. They created everything. So, and that's why you're seeing a big resurgence of all this, because people have went, wow, there's always these diehard fans. If you ever want to see how diehard fans are, go onto a Sasha fan page. It's incredible. But there's diehard fans out there, and if you can build that fan base and stick true to who you are, you'll be fine. And I think that's why Anthony's come out this on the other side. He's very, very well respected in the actual music industry.
Yep.
He's very, very well respected with record labels and stuff like that. And he's very, very, very well respected by his fans. His music stands the test of time. You only have to go back to the old Renaissance CDs or Global Underground and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Listen to them. They sound like they could have been mixed today.
Yep.
So because he honed his craft, he focused on himself, he focused on his music.
Correct.
He didn't play the PR game and trying to,
it wasn't about being popular.
He was stay away from that.
Yeah, he was being true to himself and true to his expression and authentic and not being belligerent, but it was a take it or leave it. This is how it is, and he educated people and he opened people's minds.
Well, that's why he is popular. He became popular not because of him going out doing 100 gigs a year. He became popular and respected because he focused on his music. They just went, this is someone who believes in what he's doing.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I worry about people looking at Beatport charts and all that sort of stuff and only downloading from that.
Yeah.
Go out, find something different. I mean, it's a shame vinyl was good for that because, you can flip over the B-side and go, oh, wow, where's this track come from?
Yeah.
You can't do that these days. So, I mean, the demise of record stores has played a big part in the way music is these days and kids interact with it.
I'm going to sound like
gatekeepers.
I'm going to sound like a decrepit old fella here, but that's the one thing I do miss. Is the old days of being able to go to the record stores and you go in and it was like Cheers. The guy in the bar knows your name, and you go in and there'd be a stack of vinyl.
Absolutely.
And not just that, but there was also the added thing of on particular days when people knew this is the day when the UK shipment would come in or the American shipment, you'd have your peers come in. And so there was a sense of community because we'd all get together and we'd all talk and we'd all know what's going on with you and you. And while there was a competitiveness amongst DJs, but there was still a camaraderie. Certainly that's what I noticed back in the day. And while it's great to be online and have online presence and access to all the material, I think it's that face-to-face connection and community that was created and the sharing of music and the love of music and the introduction where, this is where you got, I certainly got educated a lot by, people like Mickey B, for example, Central Station, where you come in every week and say, look, you might like this. Or there's another store called Mighty Music Machine where, Alex and Paulie, God rest their souls, used to run. And I got a fantastic music education by doing that as well. You can educate yourself online, but nothing quite like someone who says, hey, check this out. You might just dig it, and a lot of my favorite.
I used to take a 6-pack of beers to a favorite record store and sometimes a carton, and we'd sit back and enjoy beers all day. But we'd listen to music, talk about it. You're talking about what gigs they're doing, what's going on. it was our network. It was, it was brilliant. I do miss it. And that's why, if I was to say to any younger DJ watching this, it's really important that you go to music conferences, whether it's, in Australia, you've got Electronic Music Conference in Sydney, you've got, Melbourne does one as well, or something like that, Music Week or something like that. Mm-hmm. Then, I think if it wasn't for the coronavirus, this pandemic at the moment, I think I counted about 30 music conferences just in electronic music this year, but they're all gone now. I'd be really surprised at this event. I don't think it's going to happen. I just read a report that even in Netherlands, they're looking at shutting down music festivals for 2 years.
Wow.
Which is a big deal. Music festivals in Netherlands account for 5% of their GDP.
Are you serious?
So they have 740 festivals a year in Netherlands. Right.
Crazy.
Netherlands, you can drive from top to bottom in 2 hours. That's how small it is. But it accounts for 5% of GDP. So Tiesto and Armin van Buuren are actually classified as trade ambassadors. They actually have thing, and their king gets on stage and DJs and stuff on there as well, on King's Day and stuff with Armin van Buuren. It's pretty amazing. It just shows, and I mean, you got ADE has, I think last year it was 550,000 people descend on one city for a week.
Damn.
For 5 days. So that's how big the industry is over there. It's just, you look at. I was chatting to a friend of mine who's actually based here in Adelaide, but he designs the stages for Tomorrowland. Mm-hmm. Their budget for staging is 20 million alone. So it's just insane the amount of money that goes through with these things. So, but music conference, getting back to sort of what I was saying, because we'll go down a rabbit hole with that, is that because we don't have record stores anymore, it's really important that younger DJs get out, network, go to music conferences, hear from the older guys, soak it in, let your voice be heard as well. You've got just as much right as everybody else to speak up, as long as it comes from a educated point of view. Get involved. Get involved with the scene, become part of it. Put your hand up to do things on a smaller level. If you can't get over to Amsterdam and stuff, it's quite expensive to get it. In Australia, organise a bunch of DJ mates to go hang out down the pub once this was all over. Or I see Gabby, Gallo Colombo, and that are doing one with the DJs, getting online and for Global Music Pool, Global Music PR. So, put your hand up, jump on those things. I think they have about 20 DJs or something every week get on and just have a talk about music and the industry and stuff. Put your hand up. Gabby and Anthony are doing brilliant things. So
absolutely, always have those two.
Yeah, if you only go in these DJ groups or stick on Facebook, you're just sitting in a bubble. Sitting in a bubble of your own views. You're sitting in sometimes I call it a circle jerk. You're only going to get the views of same people. You've got to get outside of that. There's nothing worse than people sitting in their own little bubble and ranting on like they know stuff. Like it drives me nuts.
Unfortunately, I see more of that with older cats, because it's like they've been there, done that, and it wasn't like that back in my day. And that's one of the things I really I don't subscribe to. And when I hear it, I don't even bother even trying to argue the case, because I think when anyone's got a certain point of view and they're very locked into it, it's like just leave it. I'd rather be happy than be right, so to speak, in this current day and age. So there's always room for growth. There's always room to learn. It's important to be curious, and it's important to be a contributor, no matter how experienced or how much old school you may be or whatever. I think it's the minute you stop growing is the minute you stop contributing and learning and getting involved, getting your hands dirty, and just getting in amongst it without the fear of what people are going to think about you or your opinion or what you have to say. Just put your hand, like you said, put your hand up, get involved, do your thing. And look, everything started from a small idea. I mean, I remember when Gabby started her record pool, there was no such thing as a record pool in Australia back then. But you know what? She took an idea and she started small, and she's built this fantastic thing along with Anthony. And the same with promoters and everyone here in Australia that built something. It started from a seed, a germ, an idea and a belief, and they just got people behind them, and and then other people started getting on the bandwagon, and before you know it, the juggernaut gets built. So I think it's great advice, man.
Well, if you look at Electric Gardens Festival, that's come out here in the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
That started from Damien Geller and a couple other guys. They're a bunch of Aussie guys living in Clapham in London. Having house parties, and then it turned into a garden party, and then it got so big that they started putting tickets on. And then one year they went, you know what, fuck it, let's put a party on in Clapham Park, which became SW4 Festival. And they grew from a backyard party, just a house party, with 50, 100 people, into a massive global brand, which they then sold to Live Nation. And then Damion came out to Australia and started Electric Gardens, and now it's the biggest festival that happens around Australia, like electronic music wise. So, it started from a backyard party with a bunch of his mates. So nothing starts really big,
True. All right, mate. Listen, I just got my next client coming in, so they're waiting outside, so they can wait just 2 more minutes. But just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for your time, mate. And I know it took a few.
No worries. We could have another chat another time. We could probably go on for ages with everything, all the topics that we could go through.
Oh, question. It never ceases to amaze me, mate, when I do a podcast with people that I know. It's just like a conversation I would have with them anyway. It's just that when we have them, we're just not recording. We're just talking shit, and it's interesting. And didn't even
realize you're recording then, but we're just having a chat anyway.
Yeah, we were. Well, we have to record it to put it up there. So it's not going to be edited or anything like that. So I like to keep the organicness of it, and even with a little glitch in there, fuck it, that's just the way it happened, and no biggie. But look, thank you so much for joining me, mate. It was a great chat as always.
It's been my pleasure.
I really particularly appreciated your insights and that information about for the kids, just as coming from your experience. I think it speaks volumes. As someone who, really is passionate about wanting to mentor kids and give them guidance and inspire them, there's only so much I can say, but when they hear it from other people who are actually in the trenches, who have done the work, who have been through the highs and the lows, that speaks even more. And that's one of the main reasons I do this podcast is to speak to people like yourself who have had a journey and who also have an equal passion for wanting to see kids do well and are happy to impart their wisdom on them. So thank you very much for that, mate, because
anytime.
It's tremendous. I think it just gives tremendous value to people, and we're always here for you guys. And good luck to Decoded. And I know there's a rebranding going on that we unfortunately didn't quite get to. But you want to just quickly tell us about
what's going on?
You want to just quickly just tell us a little bit about that.
I probably won't. I appreciate the offer to. Obviously, there's pandemic throwing a lot of things up in the air, so we don't have time frames to do stuff. We were supposed to be launching Australian version. It's all put on the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
That's now given us different ways of doing things. I would probably just want to wait and see what happens on this other side. For us, we're going through investment stage at the moment. We've decided to go, do you know what, let's go all in. Let's not hoard our money. So it is exciting times for us. We're buying up lots of equipment and stuff. So, but we just need to watch this space. I think there's going to be some huge changes coming in the whole media industry in general. So,
well, you know where to find us if you need us for whatever's relevant or appropriate in your instance, mate. So thank you so much.
We'll do, absolutely.
Thank you so much, mate. You're definitely one of the good guys, and it's a privilege to be your friend, and thank you again for your time.
No worries. And just just lastly, if anyone has any questions or anything I've talked about, or just wants to have a chat or whatever, then feel free to hit me up. You can get my email address from decodedmagazine.com. So it's pretty easy. So, I'm always happy to help out. Got a lot of, I understand a lot of people have a lot of time to kill at the moment, so they've probably got a lot of questions. But my old clients are coming back going, how do we do this? And I went, well, I must have fallen asleep during that marketing thing at university about pandemic marketing. So it's we're all trying to work it out at the moment. So stay strong, everyone. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. So
indeed, agreed. And thank you for the offer. And I'll make sure that when we pop this up on YouTube, which will be in a couple of weeks, I reckon, we'll put that information in there and let people know that you're accessible.
Well, sounds good. Hopefully these flies have gone by them too.
I hope they've gone too. I hate those fuckers. I really do. Anyway, thanks so much indeed, mate. I appreciate it. So, Damion Pell from Decoded Magazine, and thank you very much to him, and thank you very much to my sponsor, Amiga MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Collingwood. Obviously, the gym is closed at the moment due to the COVID-19 situation, but hopefully when things clear up, we'll be back open. But thanks very much to George and the gang down there at Amiga MMA. All right, I'm out of here. I love you fuckers. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please remember, be nice to each other, but more importantly, be nice to yourselves, and we'll see you next time. All right, see ya.